Bueno, muy buenas tardes, profesor Erling Strand. Mi nombre es Esteban Lingeri. Bienvenido y muchísimas gracias por aceptar la invitación a participar de estas jornadas de divulgación y análisis de anomalías luminosas. Es un inmenso placer contar con su presencia.
Okay, here you see my screen. Let me see if I can make it bigger. And let me see. Do you see that's okay?
Yes.
I will tell you about the Hessdalen phenomena in Norway and what we have done in the search for finding the answer on what it can be. And Hessdalen Valley is located in Norway, in the middle part of Norway. It's not so far from the Trondheim city. It's about 120 kilometers southeast of Trondheim city in Norway. The valley is small, only 15 kilometers long, and only about 100 inhabitants living there. You have some mountains in the west. The famous one is Mount Finnsøhøgda. On the east part of Hessdalen, you have Mount Rognefjell and Mount Stordalshøgda. You have also some lakes, both big and small. Lake Øyangen is the most famous one. Around that lake there has been a lot of observation of this strange phenomena. You have also Lake Hessdalen. If you stand on Mount Rognefjell and looking towards Mount Finnsøhøgda, you get this view. So Mount Finnsøhøgda is quite a long mountain, several kilometers long, and you see the river. The river in Hessdalen is floating not far from Finnsøhøgda. You can see it on this picture here. On the other direction, if you're standing on Mount Finnsøhøgda looking towards Mount Stordalshøgda, you see this one. And you could also notice then between the mountains in the east and the mountains in the west, you have some mountains area, Hegshøgda. So that's not as high as the mountains, but above that, this mountain, there has been a lot of observation. It started with a lot of observation in late 1981, and in the period from 1981 to the autumn of 1984, it could be up to 20 observations a week at the most. In that small valley, and most of the observation was described as a light. After 1985, the amount of observation went down to a much lower level, down to about 20 observations a year. That's still a lot in a small valley. The Hessdalen phenomena itself has many different appearances or types. You have these strong white or blue flashes lasting from only a fraction of a second up to a couple of seconds. You have these yellow or yellow-white ball of light. These have different shapes. They can stay still for minutes, even hours, and they can move slowly or fast, can be several meters in diameter, and the ground has been illuminated below it. So, and also another light with another color can be attached to the main light. I could mention that this type 2, we have discussed if we should split this one in several other types, because they behave differently. The shape is quite different. Sometimes it's standing still, moving slowly. Other times it's moving very fast, and so on. So you have several types of this type 2, but we have chosen to keep it in as one type. The third main type is when you have several lights together. So if you can imagine several lights, when they are, it seems they are connected to something. So when these lights move, they all move together. And when this type of light has been seen, when it's not completely dark outside, people tell that it's possible to see some kind of black object which connect these lights together. That's a third main type. We have also observed object, although I must say that the number of observation of object is very small compared with the different lights type. We started what we call Project Hessdalen in June 3rd, 1983. The phenomena had been on a high activity level nearly 1.5 years before we started the project. Everyone believed that that university or that research establishment should start a project, but no one did. So I and some friends of mine, we also talked about why doesn't that university start a project and so on. And on a meeting, the 3rd of June, where we discussed that, we decided why doesn't we start a project? So we did, and we called it the Project Hessdalen. The main goals of that project was to get scientific data and get the phenomena accepted. And we run 2 fieldworks. The first one in the winter of 1984, when it's cold in Norway, from January 21st to February 26th. And we had also another fieldwork in 1985 with 2 periods, one with full instruments and one without any instruments. I will tell you why a little bit later. Well, during that fieldworks, up to 40 persons participated out in the field, slept in tents, in small, out in the coldness. But there was exciting, a lot of observations. We had some cooperation too with the first part, Norwegian Defense Research Establishment, and the Norwegian military, and some scientists at the University of Oslo and the University of Bergen helped us with instruments. Because the first part with these 2 fieldworks, we took instruments out in the field to try to measure on these phenomena. I call it the Hessdalen phenomena. In the beginning, we called it UFO, as everyone else. But I discovered when I tried to bring scientists into the project and wanted help from the professional scientists, when I talked about UFO, they was very skeptical. There was you shouldn't study UFO. So the difficulties that were made, we decided to change the name to the Hessdalen phenomena, and we talked about that for our scientists instead. And then their attitude became much better, and they wanted to help us. We had Project Hessdalen Part 1. We had which ended with the second field work in 1985. During that field work, we got only one good observation. Compared with the field work in 1984, we got more than 50. So we believe that the phenomena has stopped. So we didn't plan any new field work. So actually Project Hessdalen went down to a very low level, nearly non-existence, just presentations of some conferences and so on. That was all. But in 1993, I visited Hessdalen, had a presentation, and they said it still continued up there. So then I decided to start a project again. At that time, I was working at Østfold University College, and I and another college was the main part of that team who run Project Hessdalen. So we had a scientific workshop. We started the Project Hessdalen Part 2 with a scientific workshop in 1994. And I was lecturing at the University College, and we have bachelor project for our students, and we have had more than 30 bachelor projects during the years from 1994. And 1998, we put an automatic station up in Hessdalen. We have had cooperation with Italian scientists, and we had some field works together with their employment at their research establishment in Italy, and we called this field work the EMBLA field works. In 2002, we started what we call Science Camp for Young Students. I will tell you more about that later. That has been a success. Very exciting for young students to be out in the field with the instruments hunting for the phenomenon. In 2010, we have 2 new automatic field stations. We cooperated also with scientists from France and Greek, and they wanted to put up some very sensitive instruments which needed to stay far away from any electricity. So we made 2 completely new field stations with battery and sun power, and placed these stations far away from any electrical power or electrical wires or anything like that. That was done in 2010, and in 2016 we had one course for students. We call it fieldwork, and in 2018 a new research station was built at Mount Skarwan. Then we have actually 2 ordinary big research stations. Automatic field station set up in 1998, and the new research station at Mount Skarwan. So we had 2, and then we have these 2 smaller, very small stations from for the French and Greek scientists. Yes, we had some cooperation also, part 2, Institute for Radio Astronomy in Italy, Japan, CNES in France. They involved also CNRS in France, is do research. CEA was also into the business some years. A university in Greek, and also in Germany we have a professor who's have some instruments up in the what we call the blue box, the automatic station in Hessdalen, which was put up in 1988. We call it the blue box because it is inside a blue container. But I can tell of my first observation when I went up there. I became aware of this observation because of the newspaper wrote about it. Many people went up to the valley to try to see it for themselves. I and some friends decided to also go up to this valley to see. We have to travel 400 kilometers to go up there from Oslo city. When I and the team come to the Hessdalen Valley, we located ourselves on different mountains, and we was equipped with camera, and we communicated with walkie-talkie. I didn't expect to see anything the first night, but we did. And it surprised me that it was so strong, much stronger than I could imagine. And you know, this is quite a rural area. No, very little houses down in the valley. And in this part, there's no light at all. So when you see a strong light out here, it impressed me very much because how strong it was. These arrows, I was standing here looking towards the light where it was, where the cross is. Another team of group was standing on Mount Finnsøhøgda. Another team was also here, but I didn't manage to see it. So out of the 3 teams, our group has split in 3 different teams on 3 different mountains top, and 2 of them saw the light. We took several pictures. Here you can see one. You can see the light here, and you can also see the edge of Mount Stordalshøgda here. And this is the hill in the middle part of Hessdalen. And this light showed up at 7:30 p.m. In the evening. And it was standing still several minutes, move around, stop, standing still again, move to another direction, standing still. And sometimes it seems that it turned a spotlight on, pointing towards down to the ground or up in the field too. So a funny story that the person who took this picture, on one occasion this light was coming towards him, and you can imagine turning this spotlight onto the ground. And he was afraid what happened when they turned the spotlight on to me. But the light didn't come all the way up to his location, luckily. It continued for more than 1.5 hours, close to 2 hours, before it disappeared. And it was very strong, and the spotlight I remember very clearly. That made a big impression on me. Okay, that was my first observation. Here are some other pictures showing a light. These pictures are taken with the camera on tripod, standing completely still with a long exposure time, typically up to 30 seconds. And when a yellow light moving across the sky with red flashes on one of the sides, you will see on the picture a yellow streak, but it's actually the yellow light is moving during the exposure time. And on this one, you see one of the red flashes. You have blue flashes, blue and white flashes. Those last a very short period of time, from a fraction of a second to up to a couple of seconds. You have also see lights coming out from the main light. You see this upper part. You see this light turning on and off, moving across the sky during the exposure time. And when we study the picture afterwards, we see some lights. And if we enlarge that part of the picture, you can see that this light seems to come out of this main light. And that has been seen also other times. Either the light is coming out from the main light or actually going into the main light also from outside. And some have also seen that in a yellow ball of light, when they look at it with binocular, they can see sometimes it consists of many small balls of light moving inside this big light. The phenomena can change shape. This was one picture with 3 flashes on this yellow light was flashing during the exposure time. On the picture, it captured 3 flashes, which happened when, and it was moving though, during the exposure time. And you can see on the first one, it seems that be not a clear shape. On the second one, you have still this unclear outer part, but inside, if you look close, you can see something is a little bit stronger here. And on the third flash, you can see the shape is quite strange. And it seems that only the inner part on the middle picture here, or the second flash, is lasting. Is on the third one. This picture, the photographer said he took a picture of a light, and when I took the picture, during the exposure time, you remember long exposure time, up to 30 seconds, he said, when I was then taking the picture, it disappeared, he said. But he managed to get the disappearance onto his film in the camera. And you see the light to the right part here. And what's strange, it seems that it moves and goes down in a sharp angle and up again, up again, and move away very fast. So how could make such a sharp angle in that high speed? And when we talk about can it have any mass, is it heavy? Well, it's very difficult to imagine there is anything heavy which can move so fast with such a sharp angle. Another observation, this is a drawing made of the observer. It was the phenomena has been drawn here just above Mount Finnsøhøgda, and he has indicated the direction of the movement on this line here, and it disappeared here. Here's another picture from above. The photographer was standing here, and the observation was first seen on Mount Finnsahögda in the northern part. It was moving first towards him and followed the valley down here and disappeared behind the hill here. He managed to take a couple of pictures. Here's the first one. You see, it was on that day, it was foggy, it was snowing, and you can imagine the clouds was down on the mountain. Just after he had taken that picture, it was moving first towards him, and then in that direction where the arrows is pointing, and he moved the camera and took another picture just before it disappeared behind that hill. If it had been clear weather, it would have been possible to see the mountain in behind here, also here. But this time it was cloud down on the mountain. It was snowing sometimes, and even though it shows up as a strong light. Here's another observation which tells about the type 3 with several lights together, which seems to be connected to some black object or something. Here's a drawing made of the observer, a red light in front, 2 yellow light in the back. So at that observation, it was 3 lights together, and here where he was standing, he managed to take a couple of pictures. So here's the first picture. Well, actually 1 picture, a red one in front and 2 yellow one in the back. This was very strong light, so he had a very short exposure time, 1/15 of a second. I mentioned also object in the daytime has been seen. This is not a picture, this is a reconstruction. The picture, the background is the real forest or the real place. So the photographer who took this picture of the nature was standing where the witness saw the phenomena, this object, and he made this on his picture afterwards. And it was called the brown bread. It moved without any sound, very close to the observer. It's not far to this hillside, and it was moving with a light in front and no sound. This is another reconstruction of description of people who have seen it in the daylight. It's looked like some kind of zeppeliner. Here's also one. This has been seen several times in the daylight of the observer. No pictures though. This one too, you see this barrel, this yellow. This is also a reconstruction. What's strange with that one? You know, this was in the daytime, the sun was shining, and the sun was from the left part of this picture pointing, because south is in that direction. The brightest part of this yellow object was on the opposite side of where the sun was shining. You should expect that the sunshine will illuminate the object brighter on one side, but it was on the other side that the brightest part of this object was seen. So that was strange. This is also another daylight observation, or in the dawn it started to get dark. The observer was driving in a car up to Hessdalen, and suddenly she saw light all around the car, as you can see in this drawing. And when she was coming all the way up to Hessdalen, she saw that this hat was moving towards Hessdalen, away from her driving, and then she saw this hat. This is also another daylight observation. It was a hunter. You know, Hessdalen is famous for going hunting for birds and so on. And this hunter, he was hunting, and it was clear weather, sunshine, very, very nice weather in September 1980, a little bit before the big flaps started. And they say that he suddenly got a strange feeling. It was like air was removed around him. He felt something from behind. And suddenly he saw 3 sharp shadows coming from behind, moving slowly forward. And he was surprised, what could that be? And moved around and saw 3 disc-shaped objects very near, approximately. I couldn't see the distance, but he felt it was very near. He estimated about 4 meters in diameter, and suddenly all 3 turned over to the one side with the bottom in front and moved away with very high speed. This hunter named Hessdalen was very frightened after that, and he sold his rifle and had never been to hunting after this. Well, this is some explanation on the bottom. He said also there was some humming noise as a insect inside the cube. If you can imagine an insect flying inside the cube, something like that. I will take another observation, not in Hessdalen, but another part of Norway, where some witness in a cottage here saw a light was coming in this valley, moving on the other side of this lake. You can see the cottage here on the picture upper right. And it stopped here and went down on the snow. It was snow when the observation was taking place. The lower picture, it has marked with black cross, where the object or the light was moving in front of this hillside on the other side of this lake. And on here you can see the roof on the cottage, which is the cottage you can see on this picture here. The roof, so this picture has been taken from the cottage where the witness saw the whole thing. It was dark, it was bright lights moving quite slowly in front of this hillside, and when it come to the last cross here, it stopped and moved down on the ground towards the snow. It was snow there, and the snow was illuminated very strong. It was, you can imagine, strong light moving down to snow, which is white. You can see the illuminating from the snow, but suddenly the intensity of the light was very low. It turned off, as it was turned off from a bright light to a light which was hard to see because how weak it was. That happened just when it touched the snow. So it was standing there on the few seconds, and then it slowly moved up again in the same direction, very slowly in the beginning, and moved in the same direction back, but it becomes stronger and stronger intensity while it was moving here. So when it was close in this direction, it was as strong as it was in the first part. The witness got to the location on the snow and found actually 3 tracks. On this picture you see 2, about 60 centimeter wide, spiral formed, 2 of them. You can see on this picture, it's some tracked in the snow about 2 to 3 centimeters down in the snow. Some days later, we managed to take some samples of the snow, and just beneath actually the track, the bacteria was nearly killed. Very few bacteria present, and those bacteria in the snow below the track, it was another type of bacteria than it's normal in the snow, and it's a type of bacteria which is much harder to kill. So it seems that the ordinary bacteria had been killed, but only those type of bacteria who is very hard to kill survived. You can see on the samples here, you can see those dots here, and you can count on the dots and so on and find out how much bacteria it is in the snow. We took some sample in between the tracks too, and it seems to be quite normal bacteria. You see there are much more of these dots here where the bacteria living, and on the reference to 50 meters away, it was also quite similar. So it looked as if there had been some kind of, it could have been a radiation which could have killed the bacteria. We don't know that, but it's near to think of it anyway. That was just beneath the track, not only a meter away from the track. It was not damage the bacteria. Another story from Hessdalen, we don't know if this happening. You see this piece of soil, wet soil, has been moved from this place to that place, and this was a big piece, several meters in diameter, and it was all moved in one piece, not several pieces. So it would have been impossible to move such a big piece of wet soil without damaging this piece. Not so far, but a little bit, some meters. But no one saw any lights or phenomena. This is far out in the countryside, no houses, is out in the wilderness, but it's not so far from Hessdalen. So that's why I bring this picture with me too, to show that this wet soil is not possible to find out how it's possible for a human to dig out such a big piece of wet soil and move it in one piece without damaging some few meters. But I cannot connect it to the Hessdalen phenomenon, but it's close to Hessdalen, so I bring it with me. We started the fieldwork in Hessdalen in 1984, 2 fieldwork, as I mentioned, headquarter, and 1984 and 1985. We had some instruments inside, different kind of instruments. I will not go through all the details. It's possible to read all the details of the measurement of this drawing, etc., in my fieldwork report. All the instruments inside this cabin in 1985 were better equipped, same type of instruments. I can mention some of the most interesting results. We had the radar, and we could also record radar reflection. We could follow it on the screen, something moving on the screen. But sometimes we couldn't see the thing which the radar saw. So it can be seen on radar even if it's invisible. On another time, we measured the speed of 30,000 kilometers an hour by the radar. Spectrum analyzer, there was electromagnetic noise in a broad frequency range, free magnetometer, some observation made during large magnetic activity. Laser, double flashing when the laser beam was directed towards a flashing light. We used the laser, not a strong one, because people have explained that the light disappears when you point a strong light or beam of light towards the light or the phenomenon. So we expected that, but the flashing changed instead. We got 53 visual observations during the fieldwork. Actually, we got more than 180, between 180 and 190 different reports. But we have studied the report very precisely and found that 53 of those 180 describe some so strange thing. So it is the Hessdalen phenomenon. Sometimes a rocky motion was sometimes felt. As you can imagine, you are in a boat out in the ocean with a waving back and forth like this, but you were standing on solid rock on the mountain, but you have that feeling. So some things influence your brain, your inner ear, so you got that feeling. That could be low frequency electromagnetic radiation, or it can be infrasound. Well, I put the interaction here when we use the laser. You know that flashing light double the flashing frequency. When the weak laser was directed to it, that went back to normal again. Ordinarily flashing, not double flashing again. When the laser was removed, and this happened 8 or 9 times. So we pointed the laser towards this weak laser, towards the flashing light, totally 9 times, and in 8 of those times we got this double flashing. What was strange, we used a red laser, and 1 week later red light was seen moving on the ground close to the feet of the observers, where we just outside our station, and it looked like same as the laser beam for the observer. If you're pointing this onto the snow, you can see the snow illuminated very strong. We don't know if this is any interaction, but I mentioned it was strange. Yeah. Decided to start Project Hessdalen. We started with an international workshop. Managed to get 27 scientists from 8 different nations participated. Among them, Professor Boris Smirnov from Russia said the phenomenon contains some qualitative elements which at the present time has no analog in science. Thus, the solution of this problem must lead to new concepts in science. That was word from a professor in physics. Also one from Stanford, he said that the Hessdalen project has established beyond doubt that the Hessdalen lies are real physical phenomena, and these phenomena lies outside of already known physics. And the good thing, after this workshop, the press changed. It was no more smiling when reporting about the observation in Hessdalen. Before, when all the newspaper and so on, you can read in the newspaper that the journalists want to make fun of the observer, and there was some, I call it smiling between the lines. Also when the television talked about it, you have to bring a smile as if you want to make foolish of the people, and that changed after this workshop, when I managed to get some scientists into Hessdalen itself and discuss it on a scientific way. I used my student to build an automatic measurement station, blue box I call it. Started in 1994 and put it up in 1998. We call it now the blue box. It's still in operation. Here you see some pictures of it. It has been going through some developments from 1998 when we set it on operation. Camera outside, instruments inside computer. And then we had bought a tower with more cameras, a radar on top, and so on. So it has been going through some development. And we have a website, www.hessdalen.org. Well, I'm bringing into a new topic now. This from the blue box. And now we had in Norway, we had a situation, and maybe other countries too, that there were too few students who were interested in mathematics and physics. And the government was worried because we have a technical society, and what happened if we don't have any people who can run this technical thing. So the interest for mathematics and physics was very low among these students. So that was could be a really big problem. So there was saying what could be done to get the young students interested in mathematics and physics. And what should be done? Yeah, what to get them interested in mathematics and physics? Well, we come up with an idea to use a mystery to show science is exciting. If you can bring the students out in the field with instruments, measure on the phenomena, looking for the phenomena, that's really exciting. So we searched for money for doing this, and they thought it was a good idea, so we get funding for running what we call science camp. So we take the young students out in the field to invest the mysterious Hessdalen phenomena. So science camp, here you see some pictures of students on location, sleeping in tents and so on, have some instruments out there. And in the beginning, 2002, we started. Young students and the teachers are doing research during 1 week in Hessdalen. They have instruments and cameras, and they stay in tents during the night. In September, it's cold in Norway in September. The phenomena can show up anytime. It's exciting, and the students love it. And they have had some observations too. During 1 week, there are only one or 2 days they have had observation during 1 week, and they get to very exciting. They learn science, mathematics, and physics. Yeah, we have some website too. where they put the result and log and so on. The first science camp was run in September 2002. About 1,000 students have participated. The attitude to such phenomena changed to the positive when they see the phenomena themselves, or the whole group or the whole class with the students, or the teacher, I mean, whole class with their teacher. When they see it themselves, it does something with them. When they see it themselves, you know it's real. So the phenomena become more accepted as a real phenomena. The young students, they learn to use instruments and computers out in the field, and they are very keen on doing that. Before we go out in the field, we bring them to our University College and teach them the different instruments, and they're very eager to learn how the instruments is working and what they're going to measure. And we have said that we don't have any teaching book on this topic. You must go out in the field and help us making the background for making a teaching book. So now the young students were in a completely different situation. Instead of reading books, scientific books of what has been found out, they are going to go out in the field and try to get the information, and maybe they can write a book. And when we say that to the student, the attitude, and the interest in doing this raise very much. Well, near natural science, mathematics and physics, and there are still mysteries out there. And to work together in a team. Well, science camp, you see some, this is the student from our college, which helped young students the first year. Map, where we had the different teams of young students staying in tents. We had a headquarter which they reported every data to the headquarter, who write a log and so on. Here's a view of some of the camps. You see the tents and the instruments outside. Another type of tent. You have several tents, one sleeping tent and one tent for instruments. Here you see another base camp, Finso, with the tents. Another base camp where the students are staying. And here's the fourth base camp, where you can see some pictures how it looked like during these field works. Maybe I can show you a movie. They have brought also instruments out there. Do you hear the sound?
Activen el video, el audio.
Do you hear the sound?
No.
No.
Very slow.
Very, yes.
I can send you the movie and you can put that in if you
Okay.
like. Okay, then I go fast so you can see it. It showed the excitement in the student when they saw the light and filmed it. Here's another picture, was taken with very long exposure time during the nighttime. This where the arrow is pointing. The other lights here is ordinary lights from the houses in Hessdalen. And the colors, we use what we call an optical grating in front of the camera, and then white light. This one, for instance, can be seen as different colors, and the optical grating find out what kind of color it is. And if you study the amount of different colors, you can tell more about the source. Well, anyway, this is ordinary houses, light from the houses. But what's interesting is this one, this blue stream, which was captured during the exposure time. And here's a picture from 1984. You see this oscillation. In 1984, we have also this oscillation become bigger and bigger, and then it turned out. Another picture which we have managed to study these colors I mentioned. This is the Hessdalen phenomenon. This is during the exposure time, a car was driving through the valley, and you see this light here is from the car, and this color here is the colors in the lights from the car. And this is the church, the light from the church, and the colors in the lights from the church, and so on. So this is ordinary thing, but inside this star, you see a light, which is the phenomena, and you see some colors here and colors here. And when you study that, this is picked out, this one and the colors, and we have studied and found what kind of elements it's inside these lights. Ordinary elements in the air and so on, but you have also called scandium, which was very, very strange. It's a metal. I will mention another interesting observation done during science camp. This day it was aurora borealis. When it's aurora, we know that the magnetic activity is very high, magnetic storms. Every time it's aurora, it's magnetic storms. We hadn't any instruments with measure the magnetic field at that time, but we know it's a magnetic activity when it's this. Well, this was taken 10 minutes past 9 in the evening, and we had a setup with a camera taking picture every minute with 30-second exposure time. This was by pointing towards south from Mount Rognan, and we had a reference light with this. We have the optical spectrum here from this reference light, and it took picture every minute. During the next picture, it was seen an outbreak of light on another direction. So this picture, the camera has been turned during the exposure time. So this is base camp Finso, where you have Finso here, and this is the reference light, which is actually further south. So this picture was taken during the exposure time, but the next one, it was standing still on tripod, and you got this capturing, and we got this optical spectrum, which looks like a continuous spectrum, which could indicate it could be solid. A solid object do get send out the continuous spectrum, so we have studied this afterwards too. I could mention that these big outbreak, it was two big outbreaks. The last one, this was the last one just before 10 p.m. and the light was seen as big flashes 9:20, 40 minutes before these two outbreaks. This is one of them. And the flashes was strong. It could be shown up everywhere in the valley. It lasted for about 5 minutes between each, and the time between next flash was less than 5 minutes, and less time and less time, so the flashes were shorter and shorter between the flashes, which could show up everywhere in the valley, and it ended with this outbreak. I can also show you, well, after this big outbreak, there were no more Hessdalen phenomena. I can see the outbreak. Yes, the student was very excited, of course, and they were standing on this mountain, and the light was here. We had another station who could, so we could find out where it was. We had a radar also, and we had a radar running all the time, and this radar started to record something in the valley before the first flashes was seen as 9:20. So at 8:30, started to see something, and it continues recording on the radar all the time up to 10:20 or 10:30. So that was even 20 minutes after the last flash. So the radar saw it before any light was seen and continued to see the phenomena after the light was finished. So that's interesting. Yeah. We have now a study subject where students for Feltforskning, so the science camp, which has been a success all the time. Young students in the beginning and other students, so now it's our students out in the field. And we have built a base camp in Hessdalen. We call it Skarvan, white box we call it. Run on solar panel. We have to make all power ourselves. And inside we have a lot of instruments, computers. This is during science camp. So we use this station during the science camp, where we have our students into this science camp. We have also one station where we don't have this white box, so we have to use tents instead, and we have one tent for instruments and one for sleeping, and we have also a lot of computers inside with cameras and different kind of instruments recording all the time. Here's a view on the lower left. There's a view from this camp. It's on top of one of the mountains, Mount Finnsøhøgda. Yes. I think that the science camp has been such a success, and even if the student need to stay out in the coldness and not so don't have showers or anything, it's a little bit tough environment, but they love it because of the excitement. So I think that every university college should have a real mystery as a case for learning student science. There are not any study books telling what the mystery is. So the students know they will be participating in getting the data for a coming study book. As I mentioned, the young students was very exciting when they heard that maybe they will be part of making such a book. It's great education and keep the students motivated. Yes, so I will finish with some observation on the daytime. Hessdalen is a very nice valley, so many people go up there just to take picture of the nature and so on. And on some occasion, they manage to get something in the picture. So this is one example of that. They studied the picture afterwards and saw there was something up here in the picture. They didn't see it when they took the picture. They took the picture of the nature. It looked like a cube, but the strange thing that the dark side of it is towards the sun. The sun is from the right, and if you can imagine a cube, this is towards the sun, and that's the darkest side. That is strange. It's strange itself that there is a cube out in the air. This is another one which was taken by some other fellows, taking of the beautiful landscape and so on. And then they got this one on, strange form. And it's quite big. This is also one form. You can see it here. I didn't see it when I took the picture of the landscape, but when I looked at the picture afterwards, I saw this one. This is a blow up of this part. Yes, this is also a drawing made of one observer who was seeing this in the daytime. And this was coming out from nowhere in the clear sky. It was sunshine and everything in the middle of the day. And he said it became more and more part of this group. It was like a portal in the air. So it's only the first part was seen in the beginning, and then more and more of it was seen. And they say it was some outside this, which looked like some kind of metal. It was some glowing yellow lights around it. And that observation has also been seen other times. Yeah, in the beginning, last time we have done a lot of research. Geoscientists, I will not go through all the details, can be a little bit difficult, but we have asked a question: why Hessdalen? Why does it happen in Hessdalen so much? So we have some geophysicists who have walked in the Hessdalen Valley, done measurements of the ground, the conductivity, the magnetic field, and so on, drawn some figures of of how conductive the ground is on different levels and so on. And we don't know if that will bring the solution to what it is any closer, but we have mapped the Hessdalen itself very good. And here's the red ring indicate a ring with higher conductivity in the ground. Yeah, to finish up, few times it seems to be some kind of interaction. That is very few, only 4, compared with the hundreds of observations we have had. So maybe it's too few to say anything about it at all or mention it anyway. It's seen on radar, even when it cannot be seen with our eyes. High magnetic activity and humidity increase the probability to see the Hessdalen phenomena. Electromagnetic signals have been detected, in both high frequency and low frequency. It can show up from nowhere, just disappear. High energy light, UV light, with a question behind. I was thinking of killing the bacteria. We know that UV light can kill the bacteria. Many different shapes and speeds. It can be different solution to the different types of observation. It can be difficult to imagine the flashes, the small flashes lasting for a fraction of a second, very often blue or white and strong, can be the same type as these yellow balls of light moving around for hours, actually, has been seen running for more than 1 hour. It can be difficult to imagine that it's the same thing. And we have also some measurements which point in different direction. If we claim that this is the same phenomena, the same solution, same answer, it makes even more difficult to find the answer. So we have thought of, could it be different types? Could it be different solutions to the different? But the big question, why does everyone happen in Hessdalen, the location? Yeah, so many proposed natural hypotheses. We are not going to go through all these in detail. There's been some papers on it, and but I think that the variety of these phenomena, none of these explain all the sightings. So I think we need to think outside the box to find a solution. So that's the website of the project. Okay, I'm finished. Yes, I will say that my first observation made the biggest impression on me. Because it was so different from what I could hope to see. It was much bigger, and so that was the most impressive, and also with these spotlights moving up and down. That was the most, but we have had, there are several hundreds observations totally from that valley, and there are some explained by the people are very strange, yes, it's hard to pick up some specific. I think many of them are very, very exciting.
Bien, Leo, te digo a vos para que le digas al profesor. Sí. Bueno, quiero decirle en primer lugar que estoy nuevamente muy agradecido y súper encantado con su conferencia, y que nosotros con Daniel y con Andrés en marzo de este año tuvimos también, yo en particular, mis primeras observaciones de estas luces, y de alguna manera el profesor estaba con nosotros porque Daniel nos había hablado mucho de su trabajo, habíamos leído y nos habíamos interesado mucho por su trabajo, y bueno, es una gran influencia y una gran motivación para nosotros todo el trabajo que hace él en Hessdalen, en el proyecto Hessdalen.
Yes, and I think I must say that you live in a country which is very lucky, because I think you have a lot of places similar as in Hessdalen, with a lot of observations. So you're lucky.
Yes.
Fernando,
Dice,
nuevamente agradecerle al profesor y esperemos que esta no sea la única oportunidad que podamos trabajar juntos en exposición para mostrar a la gente qué es lo que está sucediendo con la investigación de las luces, que es muy importante.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we must stay in touch. We'll do that. Thank you for letting me have
Thank you
this
so much.
presentation.